My name is Diana Reeves, I'm 58, and today at 9:06 a.m., I stopped being the vice president of a company I helped build for nearly half my life. We were sitting in the conference room on the 21st floor of the downtown Seattle office, floor-to-ceiling windows, coffee and branded Nexora tech cups, Lake Union behind me. Everything looked like a normal morning at a tech company, the kind that loves to say disruption, velocity, and agility, but is afraid to say age. Across from me sat Trent Bailey, the new CEO. 34, spotless sneakers, gray hoodie, AirPods in his ears even during meetings. I remember the day he joined the company as a junior analyst, wearing a sweatshirt with a burrito stain. He was diligent, ambitious, and yes, quiet. Back then, he still knew he didn't know everything. Today, he's forgotten that. He looked at me with the expression Silicon Valley calls compassionate professionalism, which really means, I'm about to do something ruthless, but I'll try to look nice while doing it. You've been incredible, Diana, he began. Your contributions are beyond appreciated, but we're building a more youthful, fast-paced leadership team. A youthful and fast-paced team, I translated silently, meaning I'm old and slow, not angry, just outdated, like pagers or Adobe Flash. I said nothing, just watched him fidget with the ring on his water bottle. I'm sure he practiced this speech in front of a mirror, or, more likely, with a chatbot in Notion. It's not about performance, he added, it's about alignment with our new vision. Now that was almost funny, because alignment is what they say when they want to fire you but don't have the courage to say it, and vision is something they don't actually have yet but need to pretend they do. I nodded. Because by 58, you learn how to stay silent strategically. An hour later, I got an email from HR. From Ashley, the same girl who used to send me Zoom memes and ask for advice on how to ask for a raise. Subject: New role transition. Text: Dear Diana, as part of our leadership restructuring, we're pleased to offer you the role of project consultant. We deeply value your contributions and are confident your experience will be helpful in the team's new configuration. No, thank you for your years of dedication. No, we remember how you held this place together in 2020 when everyone else was jumping ship. Just new configuration. You know what the salary is for a project consultant? Half of what I made. No bonuses, no team, the office, gone. Workspace? Flexible. Which means if you show up after 9:30, you'll be sitting somewhere between the designer and the espresso machine. I closed the email. Saturday in silence. Only fragments of someone else's meeting echoed from the hallway. Let's gamify onboarding. Should we try TikTok for B2B? Make it feel Gen Z friendly. I thought, they call this culture. Young, vibrant, bold. But really, it's just another way of saying, you're no longer one of us. We won't fire you, we'll just erase everything you were. It's like being crossed out, but instead of a black marker, it's pastel pink, transparent, corporate, with a hint of innovation. I didn't feel angry or bitter, just cold, like someone had turned off the lights and left me alone in the room. Just me and memory of leading first presentations, closing deals with General Dynamics, guiding the team through 3 mergers and 1 failed IPO attempt. Of staying on calls past midnight when a client in Texas couldn't decide on a vendor. Of mentoring the same newcomers who now tell me I'm no longer part of the cultural core. That's when I realized they can take my title, my office, my name off the door. But not my reputation. Because unlike Trent, I know one thing for certain. Culture isn't a generation, it's character. And age has nothing to do with it. I joined Nexora in the spring of 2008. They had 7 clients, a WordPress website, and a logo that looked like it had been made in PowerPoint in under 8 minutes. The office didn't have a kitchen, but it had a rented water cooler. The company had no HR strategy, but it did have a corporate credit card debt and a founder who believed organic growth meant not hiring anyone until he burned out. I was 41 at the time. I had just left a major agency in Chicago, where I'd been director of business development. Moved to Seattle, fell in love with the idea of building something of our own from the ground up. No politics, no PowerPoint princes, no layers of meaningless management. I wanted to get closer to the core. I didn't join Nexera, I joined the idea of Nexera. I joined people who didn't yet know how to close a quarter, but knew why they were doing what they were doing. In my first month, I brought in a client from Atlanta telecom company I'd worked with at my previous agency. We jumped on a Friday evening call, closed the deal in 2 hours, and by Monday Nexera had its first $250,000 annual contract. It's still in their internal stats as the deal that saved Q2 2008. Then came 2009, the crisis. Clients slashed budgets, projects froze. The three of us sat in a windowless meeting room, calling anyone we could. I personally called 61 clients in a week just to say, "We're here. If you can't pay now, let's work it into future projects." And it worked. Half came back. A third stayed for good. I taught the team how to talk to clients. Not from a script like a human. To listen, not interrupt, not fear silence. I ran negotiation workshops where we rehearsed hard conversations, how to say no in a way that earns respect, not pity. We didn't have a client success department, we were the department. All of us, everyone. Even the designer knew what to say if a client asked why a deadline slipped. Many of the people Trent now calls slow or inflexible are the very people I trained. I watched them go from, "I'm afraid to speak on calls," to, "I'm leading a $1.5 million deal." I remember our first trip to San Francisco. No booth, just laptops and business cards. I landed a meeting with Sequoia Capital by messaging a partner on LinkedIn. We sat in a cafe in Palo Alto demoing a product that crashed every 10 minutes, but I knew how to hold attention, and I knew when the product didn't matter as much as the confidence people had in those behind it. I wasn't just building a client network, I was building trust. That relationship equity that doesn't show up in your CRM, but brings people back years later. And now I'm being told I don't fit the culture. But I was the culture. I wrote the first tone of voice guidelines. I pushed for a post-mortem after every deal, even successful ones. I introduced the no-blame retro policy, where we discuss failures honestly, without witch hunts. Later, someone called it a healthy feedback loop. We just called it being adults. When Trent says, "We want a culture of flexibility and speed," he's talking about packaging, but I know what's inside. And I know what real flexibility costs: sleepless nights, tough compromises, and the ability to take a hit when everything's falling apart. You can't be fast if you're not resilient. And you don't become a leader because you use asana or say, "Let's circle back in meetings." You become a leader when people follow you. When they trust you, even when they're scared. And you know what the irony is? 15 years ago, Nexera's slogan was, "We build the future by learning from the best." And now they think the best is what they need to get rid of. Because we don't look like the cover of Fast Company. Because our faces don't pass the young and vibrant filter. But I know this. In the future, they'll be learning from my example. Whether they like it or not. At first, it was just the looks. The kind that make you feel like you've suddenly walked into a meeting where everyone's speaking a different language and you sort of understand, but no one addresses you directly anymore. Then came the fleeting conversations. First by the water cooler, then on calls. I mean, Diana's great, obviously, but she just doesn't get TikTok. She still uses email for follow-ups like long emails. And then someone left a comment in Notion under my campaign proposal. Let's make sure we include younger perspectives here. As if I'd suggested launching a radio ad in 90s style. No direct words, just the tone, the atmosphere. Slightly out of touch, old-fashioned. A 2010s format. I tried not to react, even joked. I may not dance on reels, but I know how to make numbers move. They laughed, but in their eyes condescension. At least she's not getting defensive. Meanwhile, the office was already buzzing about a leadership reset. Trent, who's 34, was assembling a new wave team, people aged 27-30. Most of them had flashy internships, LinkedIn certificates, and talked like podcast transcripts. They said things like "move fast" and "prioritize authenticity," but couldn't survive a single tough meeting with a difficult client. Trent was betting on the future of leadership. I looked at him and thought, have you ever actually been in the present? Where clients pay $1 million and leave if you greet them wrong on Zoom. And then I saw the email. It was meant for the HR team, but I was accidentally CC'd in the thread. Subject: Internal Culture Alignment. Hi team. As we continue to build a fast-paced, innovative environment, let's prioritize leadership voices that align closely with Gen Z insights, short-form content fluency, and async-first communication. Legacy knowledge is valuable, but we need to shift focus from experience-heavy roles to adaptable, signal-driven management. Best? Trent. I read it twice. The word legacy hit like a diagnosis. Experience now, just legacy, not an asset. Something to be phased out? They called it cultural development. But I heard something else entirely. She's from another time, she's not here to stay. They didn't know I once personally saved the sales department when our head of sales disappeared on vacation in Bali with no Wi-Fi. That I was the first to reach out to our health tech clients when COVID shattered supply chains and only human connection kept deals alive. That I built the client support system that kept Nexora's NPS above 80 for years. They said, Diana prefers synchronous meetings that slows us down. But I knew that synchronicity isn't a drag, it's accountability. It's when you don't hide behind just Slack me, but speak face to face. Listen. Respond. Build real connection. That's not valued anymore. Now it's trendy to be efficient, async, Gen Z friendly. And if you're over 40, you're automatically on the optimization list. But you know what I realized that night when I saw that email? They may stop seeing your value, but they can't take it from you. And if they think I'm outdated, I'll show them what experience looks like in action. No filters. No reels. And no water cooler. Sometimes, change doesn't start with a mandate, it starts with a whisper. I began to notice it got quieter in the office when I walked into the common area. Jokes would fade, someone would quickly switch tabs on their laptop. No one said anything directly, but it felt like walking into a room where people had been talking about you and suddenly went silent. At first, it was harmless comments. Diana's great, but she doesn't really get TikTok, right? She still prefers email over Slack, that's wild. As if that really mattered. As if knowing a platform was more important than knowing the market. Then someone accidentally forwarded me a screenshot from Notion about new processes. One of the new project managers had written, "We need to reduce friction in leadership. Some of the legacy folks move slower than we can afford." Legacy. That word started to sound like a stain. HR sent out an internal memo, officially about communication alignment. But in reality, let's ensure our leadership messaging reflects Gen Z values transparency, speed, and cultural fluency in short-form media. Consider limiting synchronous meetings in favor of async tools like Loom, Slack, and Figma comments. I'm still not sure what stung more. That I was labeled outdated, or that my ability to lead live human conversations was suddenly deemed inefficient. I watched newcomers, many not even 30, get quick access to strategies and budgets. Some of them didn't even know we had a product before the 2014 redesign. One didn't know Nexora only hit break-even in its third year. But they were on trend. They recorded reels with team updates. They used Slack bots. They quoted product school podcasts. They said things like, "Let's be radically transparent. We're not here to manage, we're here to inspire." And in the shadow of all that performative wisdom, my 15 years of negotiations, crises, and midnight deadlines looked like dusty archives. Diana has a ton of experience, but we need to evolve. She's more corporate, we're more culture first. Does she even know how to do a brand story for a Gen Z audience? Me? Not know how to reach Gen Z? I remember launching a campaign for an eco-startup targeting Bay Area students. I manually tested each message with focus groups, collected feedback, rewrote the landing page 4 times until the CTR doubled. That campaign was one of the first times we got noticed on Product Hunt. But that was before TikTok. Before experience went out of style. Now you're in the loop if you know how to make 20-second videos with headlines like 5 mistakes you make at work and how to fix them. If you say alignment more often than results. I stayed quiet, watched. listened. Until one morning I overheard one of the new girls in the kitchen. I mean, Diana's nice, but, my mom uses email too. And the whole group giggled. It wasn't malicious, just careless, thoughtless. But something clicked inside me. Not because I felt humiliated, but because I realized they genuinely believe they know better. Just because they're younger, just because they're riding the wave. They think I don't fit. That I'm too old to be part of their future. But when I look at them, I see how easily they dismantle what they never built. Well then, I won't argue. I'll just show them what real leadership looks like, not in reels, but in real life. And while they chase likes, I'll gather what actually matters. Trust, influence, and results. Quietly. Deliberately. The way it's always done. By those who don't make noise. But make things happen. All my life, I taught others. A leader is someone who keeps their composure no matter what. Someone who arrives first and leaves last. Someone who doesn't complain, just delivers. But no one ever told me that silence is also a choice. And sometimes the wrong one. After the demotion, I kept coming into the office for a week, acting like nothing had happened. "Thanks for staying with us," someone from HR said. "This could be a great opportunity to reevaluate your strengths," said another, as if I were some upgrade project. But inside, something was bubbling. Not anger, no, anger passes. This was something else. The refusal to disappear, to be erased. Because I've seen it happen how often women my age just vanish. They change their LinkedIn profile pictures. Post a dry, moving on update. And that's it, no noise. But I didn't want to vanish. I wanted to say it out loud. I opened LinkedIn. My hands were slightly shaking. Fingers hovered over the keyboard. And then, they started typing on their own. Yesterday, I was told I'm too old to lead. 15 years ago, I walked into Nexora Tech when we were just a name on a shared server and a WordPress site. I built partnerships. I built teams. I built trust. Today, I was told there's no space for me at the table I helped build. Here's the thing, I'm still here, and I'm not done. I hit post. First silence. Then the first few comments. Then notifications. Within an hour, 300 likes. In 4 hours, 1,000. By the next day's lunch, 20,000. I opened Slack and realized people at work were reading. One of the developers DM'd me. "I had no idea. Thank you for saying it." Sheryl Sandberg shared the post, adding, "Leadership has no age limit." Harvard Business Review followed with, "Age bias in tech is real and rarely addressed." That evening, I saw Chelsea Handler in my feed. She'd screenshotted the post and wrote, "Ageism is the last acceptable office bias. Diana, you're a damn queen." And that's when I realized I struck a nerve. Not just mine, but a nerve felt by hundreds, thousands of people who feel the same but stay silent. Because they don't want to seem bitter or outdated or resistant to change. Now they were writing to me. "Your post made me cry in a WeWork booth. I've been told the same thing and I stayed silent. Not anymore. You just spoke for a whole generation." One of my former clients messaged, "Let me know if you ever start something, I'd follow." And for the first time in a long time, I felt something return. My power. Not because I got my position back, but because I came back to myself. They tried to dim me, but I chose volume. And if you think this is the end, you clearly don't know what a woman is capable of. Once she's done being ignored, when you hit post, you don't know who will respond. You don't know if it'll echo into silence or turn into a chorus. The morning after my LinkedIn post, I opened my inbox and froze. 87 unread emails. Some with subject lines like, "Thank you. You wrote what I never dared to." Finally, someone said it. The first was from Leslie, a former colleague from BD. She'd left Nexora a year ago quietly, no announcement, just disappeared from all work channels. Now she wrote, Diana, I still remember how you stood up for me in that investor meeting, when no one wanted to listen to a woman with an accent. I left because I got tired of feeling invisible. Thank you for speaking up. Next came a message from Jeff, a 26-year-old junior product manager. I'm one of the people Trent says he's building a younger culture for. But the truth is, I learned real leadership from you. You had clarity, empathy, and you never said yes just to make things easier. We don't need younger faces. We need older minds. I closed my laptop just to catch my breath. But the messages kept coming. Slack, Instagram, even my old work email. From people I hadn't spoken to in 5-10 years. And nearly every message carried the same truth. We're not old, we're alive. A generation that gave its soul to companies, not just its time. People who spent nights in the office when investors called at 2:40 a.m. Who didn't just bring speed, but depth. And then an email from Subject line: would you consider speaking about this publicly? From Caitlin Farrell, a journalist who covers workplace culture, Delaware the First, and career transitions. She opened with, your post raised an urgent and under-addressed issue. Ageism in tech isn't new, but few speak about it this directly and professionally. My heart beat faster. First thought, what if this looks like revenge? But right behind it, a louder one. What if it looks like an example? Because I don't want someone else to tell my story after I've already been written out of the frame. And if we stay silent, then what wins isn't professionalism, but presentation? Not trust, but trend. Not results, but aesthetic. I clicked reply. Dear Caitlin, thank you for reaching out. I believe this conversation is overdue. Let's talk. The interview with the New York Times didn't happen in a studio or an office or across a polished boardroom table. We met in a small cafe in Seattle's Capitol Hill district. Caitlin placed her recorder on the table and simply said, let's start simple. What did you feel when your CEO said you didn't fit the young culture? I looked down at my coffee and said, the same thing someone feels when they're pushed out of a house they helped build. She nodded. She didn't ask about facts, they were already public. She asked about what lived underneath. Were you angry? I saw the scale of the problem. Ageism isn't about numbers. It's about the assumption that experience loses value once it hits 40. A week later, the article came out. Leadership doesn't expire at 50, the case of Diana Shaw. It spread instantly. Tens of thousands of reactions on LinkedIn. I was invited to the podcast Work Reimagined, hosted by a former Salesforce CHRO, with an audience of thousands of decision makers. I sat at home, in a sweater, mic in front of me, and said over Zoom, I don't need a chance. I need space. Age isn't a barrier to change. It's the fuel. The day after the episode aired, Forbes ran a quote, age is not the opposite of innovation. Then it kept growing. Reddit, Hacker News. Even a TikTok, a young woman explaining, this is why an experienced woman in tech threatens the boys' club boards. I didn't laugh. I just watched. I hadn't asked for any of it. But I had earned all of it. Nexora stayed silent. No statement. No support. Just nothing. At some point, someone sent me a screenshot. Diana Shaw has been removed from our leadership page. No announcement. No farewell note. They just erased my photo and my name. As if I'd been a temporary bug in their new culture. But you know what can't be erased? The truth. And the truth was, they didn't silence me. They gave me a reason to speak louder. When I was 25, I dreamed of building a career. When I turned 50, I decided to build my own space. After all the interviews, posts, calls, and emails, I realized one simple truth. I didn't lose, I just took a different route. I was sitting at home in Rainier Beach, laptop on my knees, a notebook beside me scribbled with a rough plan. And on the first page, the name. Reeves Insight Partners. Yes, Reeves my maiden name. I took it back. Quietly. Honestly. Fully. It wasn't an agency. It wasn't coaching. It was a space for seasoned leaders who aren't afraid to be smarter than the moment. The mission was clear. We help companies grow without erasing their past. The slogan, it came on its own, like it had been waiting for the right moment. Wisdom is not legacy, it's leverage. I launched the site clean, calm, no hype. Published the first white paper. Age and innovation, the false trade-off. It opened with one question. If experience slows innovation, why does everything collapse without it in a crisis? The document spread among ex-colleagues, LinkedIn voices, and unexpectedly, investors. Messages started coming in. We want to rethink leadership. We need Diana's perspective. We're not aging, we're becoming dangerously qualified. One of the first inquiries came from a domain I knew by heart, at truecloudventures.com, a VC firm that backed Nexora's Series B. And in the signature, Monica Bell, Managing Partner, former Nexora Board Advisor. The email was short. Diana, I'm so glad you launched. We've been waiting for this. We have a project, and it starts with a question. What if maturity is the most undervalued asset in the market? I couldn't help but smile. That's how it all began. By the end of the month, we had 5 clients. One of them, a Seattle startup Nexora once dismissed as too niche. They reached out to me. We want to work with someone who listens, not just someone who pitches. I no longer asked for permission. No longer shook the hand of a CEO who once told me my time had passed. I built a space where my time was just beginning. And no one, not a CEO, not an investor, not an HR director, will ever again tell me I'm finished. Because I'm not at the end. I'm at the beginning. When I was demoted, I didn't leave quietly. I broke out. At a Tech Women webinar with hundreds of professionals from across Silicon Valley, I said, I wasn't retired, I was recycled. The room went silent. Then laughter, warm, supportive. And then applause. It was recognition. We're not discarded. We're reused, reshaped, and redefined, but we get to choose our form. After that webinar, I got flooded with messages from women who'd faced the same. They called me old. They said I wasn't trending. But I'm here to prove them wrong. I wrote a column for Fast Company. The headline was simple. They called me old. I became louder. In it, I said that age isn't a sentence, it's an advantage. That experience isn't a weight, it's fuel for new wins. And in the world of startups and disruption, we forget. Maturity brings depth and resilience. The story spread fast across social media, boardrooms, and comment threads. People shared quotes. They cited me at conferences. They said I was giving voice to what had been quiet for too long. In offices, on sidewalks, and in Zoom rooms, people began asking, what if maturity is the new strength? To me, this wasn't just a victory. It was a new challenge. Not just to be a leader, but to become a symbol of change. And now I knew one thing for certain. No one gets to push me out of the game. Because I'm not playing by their rules anymore. I'm rewriting them. A full year has passed since the day I was demoted at Nexora. A year of fight, of change, of rediscovery. Today I stand on stage at the Lead Forward conference in Los Angeles. In the audience, hundreds of people leaders, founders, professionals, both young and seasoned. Behind me, in bold letters, a quote glows on the screen. We don't outgrow leadership, we grow into it. That's my message. My truth. I'm sharing my story, but not from a place of pain anymore. From a place of pride and clarity. I say, I'm 59 and I'm just getting started. The room rises in a standing ovation. And in the front row, I see someone who once led a startup I used to advise. Someone I now mentor. He smiles, nods. And in his eyes, I see something I once fought to reclaim: respect. I remember all the years. The times they tried to push me off the stage. The times they questioned my value. The times they said, "Your time has passed." But now I know. Age is not the anchor that pulls us down. Age is the anchor that holds us steady in the storm. It gives us stability, wisdom, and the strength to keep moving forward. The world may keep rewriting the rules, but I will keep playing by my own. Because real leadership isn't about staying in front of time. It's about growing with it. Thank you.